7 different C's, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm checking my notes here, but those 7 C's we talk about, and you don't have to talk about all of them, but competence, confidence, connection, character, contribution, coping, and control. And so just maybe pick one that might be that you think might be important, and what advice might you give to our parents on one or two of those C's?
I would say control.
Okay.
And I feel like because it's something as a parent, when we see our children hurt, it activates something in us to want to fix it, like we said. But also teaching kids that locus of control within themselves of what they can control and they can't. So they are not controlled by their, bad things that happen to them, right? It's how they respond to that. And if parents role model how we respond when we're upset and we don't get what we want in a negative way, kids are going to do that as well. And so if parents can really teach early on that they can't always control what someone else does or how someone else acts, they can just respond how they react and how they internalize that and how they respond to that. So I always think there's like the reactors and the responders. You want to respond. And responding takes that moment to think about what are my options, how can I handle this situation? Or reacting is going to be the flying off the handle and just going with that emotional part that comes up. Because losing and getting yelled at or, being told to do something different kind of feels icky, right? We all struggle with that. And so how can we help kids know that that's part of it sometimes in the game if you're being coached? But how can you respond to that in a healthy way? Because if you get stuck in that emotional part in the brain, it's going to lead you to react in ways that aren't healthy.
I'd like to just talk about for a moment character, right? It's one of our values, but it means lots of different things to different people. In the context of resilience and kids, what would you tell parents or what advice would you give about character?
So there's a few different things that I think that make up like that healthy sense of self and character building for kids. One, I would encourage parents and kids to help your child branch out in all different areas. So just being an athlete is not something you want to focus. Like, this is it. This is our scholarship. This is what we're doing, right? That's a lot of pressure. You want your child to be well-rounded in other areas, right? There's lots of parts of the brain. There's that, for the drive for, if you're athletic, there's also the creative side. I feel that we need to help kids have a balance. So what I see and we see in our clinic is that kids, if they have an injury, their whole sense of self and identity was on that. So it's shattered. And then what do you do? So they're like, what's my purpose? So when we think about character and with kids, we want to have them learn what's their purpose. They are more than just an athlete. They are, they could volunteer, I think, getting involved in the community. They're students that tap into some of the other things, having, again, those options, but not just putting everything in one basket per se. You want to encourage them to do different things. And so having them involved in lots of different things is going to build character, right? And it's also going to help them with communication. It's going to help them learn to adapt to different situations, because on the field might be different than when you're volunteering in a nursing home.
I was just going to ask that.
Okay? And so when you're thinking about character, you want them to learn those communication skills on and off the field. You want them to have those experiences. That's what builds up who they are, that they're not just this or just that. They're all of those things. They're all of those great gifts that they've been given. And that if one isn't working at the time, they have lots of other things to go on. When kids are just so fixated on this one thing, if that doesn't work out the way that they want it to be, it's going to spiral them into maladaptive, unhealthy coping. And so we will see kids who will then engage in eating disorders, self-harm. Self-harm, just to deal with the emotions because they don't know how to deal with them. And there's a lot of that scares parents, but there's a lot of resources there of why that's happening. And it is really good for parents to always communicate Where are you at? How are you feeling? How are you doing with this? Not focus so much on the behaviors, but the roots of what's going on. So I see you're really upset. Let's talk about what it is that's going on underneath. And let's get to that and not focus on your behavior's out of control, therefore this, and this. It's really what's happening to the child, and that's why are they acting that way.
Is there any advice or any perspective that you would give parents on the 7 C's?
Sure. I mean, I struggle with them, right? We all
Right, we're
do.
human.
Yeah, and it all comes from our roots, right? Like in our foundations of how those messages that we received when we were younger, and it moves into how we parent, right? It's called transference, right? So those negative messages, then we put them on, and it might lead us to parent our kids in a very different way. I think the number one thing that I would say is that don't wait till the crisis. And we are our best advocates for our kids when we are healthy and when we are making those good decisions and role modeling those things that we're asking of our kids.